Lucy's Kitchen. It's Lucy's Kitchen. Do 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 do. Lucy's Kitchen. Lucy's Kitchen. Lucy's Kitchen. It's Lucy's Kitchen. Lucy's Kitchen. Lucy's Kitchen. Oh yeah. Lucy's Kitchen. She's Lucy and she's got a kitchen. Lucy's Kitchen.
Hello, welcome to Lucy's Kitchen. I'm Lucy, and this is my kitchen. Let's start by boiling some eggs. So you start with the 2 quarts of water. You have your 6 eggs set aside, and you bring that water to a rolling boil. A rolling boil is when you have large bubbles and they start to roll around and look very festive. When that happens, you know you can put your eggs in. Now, you want to be very careful with your eggs because you don't want them to crack. And you know, when you put cold eggs into boiling water, that can easily happen. In fact, it's probably best to start with room temperature eggs. Either way, put them in one at a time with a slotted spoon. So you put it in the slotted spoon, you lower it into the water, and then put the next one in, the next one, until you have all 6 in the boiling water. As soon as you do, you time it for 30 seconds, and then you add your secret ingredient, which is 12 ice cubes. Not 11, not 13, 12. So you put in your 12 ice cubes carefully, and then what happens is it stops it from boiling. It takes a few minutes to get it back up to a boil. And during that time, they're cooking. And what has also happened, and one reason you're using boiling water, is that the inside of the egg shrinks away from the outside, which has expanded in the hot water. And it keeps the egg perfect inside, and it'll make it easier to peel in the end. Once you've had your 30 seconds of waiting, you put your ice in. Now you're waiting for it to boil again. So at that point, as soon as it turns to another rolling boil, you turn it down to the lowest temperature on your stove, and then you set the timer for 12 minutes. And at 12 minutes, they're done. There goes our timer. So now we'll turn this off. Carefully take them out with the same utensil. A slotted spoon works wonders. I'm putting them in the colander, and then I'm going to take them to the sink, spray cold water on them till they're cool enough to handle, and start peeling them. And we'll be on our way to making deviled eggs. One of the secrets is there's a pointy end and then there's a round end. And actually on this egg, it's hard to tell which is which. But you look for the round end because usually there's a little pocket of air that forms at the round end. And you have a little open space. So you peel off, and there it is. You peel off a little bit of the egg, and then it's very helpful if you put it back in the cold water and let the water get in there. And then this should really just peel very easily. You want to have a little bit of water nearby because you will dip your egg in there every now and then. And it makes short work of peeling a whole dozen eggs. Now, it's okay if a little bit tears off. Once you've made your eggs, nobody will be able to tell the difference. Okay, here's my paper towel. I'm just going to let it dry on there a little bit. That was fun. I'm going to do that again. So here's an egg. Now this one has a pointy end and a round end. And I'm going to smash it around, but gently, because you don't want the egg to break in half. You just want the shell to get nicely, oh, there we go. And there's that little bubble that I was telling you about. So you very gently go around, in fact, stick it in the water, and it should just peel very nicely. You know, sometimes things stick to it, little bits of it, and that's okay if that happens. But it happens much less with this technique than any other I've ever tried. All right, that's it. I'm going to pat them dry and get rid of that. So you just take the egg, slice it in half, and then you've got this perfect yellow yolk with no green around it. Pop that right into the food processor. You're going to ask me, what do I do if I don't have a food processor? I'll tell you in a minute. So, there we go. And, all right. So now I'm going to put these on the egg plate. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. All right. Now, what do you put in deviled eggs? Now, there's a lot of controversy. Some people like them spicy and they want to put sriracha. That's a great thing to put in there. We're just going to make them the classic way. We're going to put mayonnaise and mustard and some turmeric. And the reason we put turmeric in is for the yellow color. And it also, turmeric's really good for you. Some salt and pepper and a little Worcestershire sauce. When you put all of those ingredients in, you've got the classic deviled egg. And we'll add it right here to the egg yolks that are in the food processor. There's my mayonnaise. And that's about half a cup of mayonnaise for 12 eggs. So people think, oh, deviled eggs are very caloric. But actually, half a cup for 12 eggs, that's not so bad. And, okay, that's noisy. And then we need about a tablespoon of mustard. Now, you can use Dijon mustard. You could use a little bit of dry mustard powder if you have it. But classic yellow mustard works just perfectly. And so, and we need about a tablespoon of it. So I'm just going to show you. This is a tablespoon. And I'm not going to fill it because it ends up being really hard, but I'm going to estimate. So it's like really the size of an egg, a half an egg yolk. So I'm going to just squeeze that in there, looking at an egg yolk. Okay, perfect. All right, then we want about a teaspoon of turmeric. Now, if you don't like the taste of turmeric, you don't have to use this, but I think it really adds a nice yellow color. In this case, of course, we've got a great yellow color because the egg yolks are so perfect. So here's a teaspoon of turmeric. Well, maybe I have a little less. That's all right. So that's about a half a teaspoon. That's enough. And then we want a half a teaspoon of salt and well, actually, the secret is don't measure it over what you're cooking because if you made a mistake, you could end up with a lot of salt in there. Where here, you'll just pour it into the other bowl. So have a little dish nearby to catch the excess salt if there is any. All right, and then we want to kind of flatten it and just make sure. Okay, that's about half a teaspoon. Perfect. And then here's some freshly ground pepper, and that's about a little bit more than a quarter teaspoon. And then our Worcestershire, which is a lovely touch. You will barely notice it. Oh, see, this is good because there's salt in here. You'll barely notice it in terms of, oh, I don't know, it's not that distinctive in this large amount of egg yolks. But when you have it in the deviled eggs, it's quite tangy and lovely. It just gives it a nice little tang. All right, and then that's it for now. So I'm going to put the lid on the food processor. All right, I'm going to pulse it. I don't know if you can see this. Move my board over. Okay, what you want is this to be super, super smooth. That's why we're using the food processor. You can also, if you don't have a food processor, you are more than welcome to just smush them around with a fork and put them in your eggs with a spoon. But I'm going to do a fancier egg and put them in with a piping bag, a pastry bag. So that I can do little spirals. And in fact, before I get any further, I'm going to just go ahead and scrape down the sides. can already see that they need it. And I think I'll take my knife and scrape all that off. Get that in there. All right. All right. And then do that again. Okay, so now we're going to just let it go for 30 seconds. All right, let's see how it is. Oh, this looks really good. When you use your spatula on the side, what you want is a very yellow and beautifully smooth consistency, and a consistency that you can tell holds its shape. Now this is going to be a little bit more like mashed potatoes and not quite so much like cookie dough. Cookie dough would be too hard. Mashed potatoes would probably be just about right. So if this seems like mashed potatoes to you, then I think you're doing perfectly. Okay, now we are going to put all of this into a pastry bag and then pipe it into our 2 dozen deviled egg halves. The first thing I'm going to do is get the pastry bag, and this is one of the more difficult things that we have to do. I have a commercial pastry bag. You can use a plastic bag with a little hole at the end. You can use parchment. I like these. They have a line on them that says maximum. So I know that it can only take this much. We might have to do this a couple of times. It's really hard to fill this with holding it in one hand, although you can. So I'm just setting it down in a glass, and it just kind of props it up. The first thing I'm going to do is take out the blade, which is covered with our beautiful filling. And there we go. Let's get that out of there. Okay. We don't want to waste any of this because we just never know. We want to make sure we have enough to fill all 24 eggs. And that's a little bit hard to estimate. Okay. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a big dollop of this, put it in the bag. All right, that's perfect. Oh, I forgot to mention. In my case, I'm using a decorative tip at the bottom of the pastry bag. I cut a little bit of a hole so that I could push this all the way in. You don't have to. You can also just, if you cut a little hole in your plastic bag, that will probably also work. It won't be as decorative, but that's okay. If you're comfortable with this, great. And I'm going to just, scoop that down there and just let that sit aside. I know that's a little noisy, sorry. And so now we want to, this wouldn't be as noisy with a real, okay, there we go. Now I'm squeezing it down, all the way down. Okay, now it's going to come out of the tip. And don't forget to push the tip as far down as you can so it really presses against the plastic. That way the filling just goes inside the tip. And now here we are, we're going to be carefully just squeeze it into the middle, and there it is. Gorgeous. This is really lovely stuff. And you want to fill it completely. This one's a little underfilled. I might go back and add a little bit more later. So there's just this gorgeous little star. A long time ago, we were invited to a New Year's Eve party, and I thought, oh, perfect opportunity to make deviled eggs. And I made perfect deviled eggs. They were gorgeous. I spent a lot of time on them. I decorated them beautifully. It was New Year's Eve, so I just went all out. And I put them in my favorite platter. Now, a platter is not necessarily a good thing for deviled eggs. As you can see, this little platter is an egg platter, and it has little indentations for the eggs. And they come in 12, or this one happens to hold 24. Well, the reason that these egg platters are so nice is because the eggs just stay put. You can see that. I'm holding it up and they're not sliding or anything. In the case of my New Year's Eve party, I put them in this really beautiful ceramic platter. It was my favorite dish. And they fit perfectly, actually. They were snug and they just fit all around. So I thought, oh, good. It doesn't matter that they don't have indentations. And so it was New Year's Eve. It was very cold, like 0. And so I carefully covered them with plastic and I carried them up to the car, and I was being so careful. My husband opened the door, the back door of the car, so that I could, lay them on the seat without having to open the door myself. So it was great. But I looked at the seat and it was kind of angled like this, and I thought, oh, I'm going to put the back of the seat down. So there's a little handle, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to pull that handle up and it'll just go down. Okay. And I'm holding the platter in this hand and I'm doing the handle with this hand, and all of a sudden it just goes, and it hits the edge of the eggs, and the platter flips and falls out of my hands. Of course, it was quite a nightmare. It was a disaster because it was 0. The eggs went everywhere. They immediately froze to the floor of the car, to the driveway, to the gravel, to everything you could imagine. They were, what can I say? They were ruined. And the worst part was that when my husband saw me making the eggs, he sneaked in and said, "Could I have one?" And I said, no, you cannot have an egg. You have to wait for the party. And now I was regretful that we didn't eat all of them, and just screw the party. So I was very disappointed. But luckily, the plastic that was on top had caught 3 eggs. So actually, we were able to have them right then and there, which was great. But the worst part of this was that my beautiful platter cracked, and that was the end of that. I was so sad. And of course, it's 0. We're on our way to a party. It's New Year's Eve. We're in our nice clothes, and we have to clean up. We have to do all that. Anyway, don't let that happen to you. Get one of these. This is making me a little nervous because I'm looking at the amount here and I'm hoping it's enough to fill the rest of these eggs. We have 9 left. I think we can. Uh-oh. There's still some there. That was a little air pocket. Oops. Make that a little fancier. Okay, I've got a little left, so I can go back to ones that look a little skimpy. And I think pretty much they're all super nice. You can see why it's worthwhile to learn how to use one of these. And if you use it the first time and it doesn't work out, they'll still be nice. They'll still be beautiful. I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. All right, so this, okay. So now the important part, which is decorating the eggs. Now you can leave them like this, and of course no one will complain, but the nice thing would be to put something on them to bring out a little color. As you can see, this white plate, and if you can get something other than white, you'll probably be happy. This white plate is a little dull against the eggs. You can barely tell them apart. So I'm going to put a little green in them with a little parsley. And I've cut these up into little tiny parsley florets. So they look adorable. And so I'm going to do a few of them with the parsley. And that one's an icky one. That one's kind of sad. All right. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some of them with parsley, And I'm going to do some of them with bacon. And I think some people will be like, oh, I want the bacon. Okay. And then I have my crispy bacon, and I've broken it into pretty large, not huge, but sort of large pieces. And we'll just stick it down the middle like a little flag. You can see it was really a simple thing to do. I'm sure your friends and family would love these deviled eggs. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and make sure you tune in next time for more recipes from my kitchen to yours.